Wait for it. Wait for it. And we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction, as we gave a demonstration of to Jacob in the pre-show, because that's just how we roll. We gave him time to back out, and he didn't run.
I'm so sorry, Jacob. I know it's our first introduction. I didn't mean to blow up like that. Don't take it personally. I get passionate about certain aspects of art. We'll just leave it at that.
So I'm just saying, if you really want to get the hate mail going, start sending Nick questions about camera angles. If you know, you know. John Apple, I'm talking
my first rant. Not my first rant.
John, if you're listening, he wants you to tell him why he's wrong. Just start spamming his inbox. It doesn't matter if you agree with him. Just get him going. It'll be hilarious.
Stabby will like it.
All right. With that out of the way, Jacob, can you introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers, please?
Sure. I am Jacob Holo. I write science fictions, sometimes a little bit of fantasy. I've best known for co-authoring the Goring Division series with David Weber, of which the Dyson File is book number 5 in that series, and is my first traditionally published solo novel, which I'm
awesome.
Very excited about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my background, the other job, I have about 20 plus years experience in automotive industrial controls. I guess you could call me an expert in that field, though most of the stuff that I do nowadays is database programming.
Oh.
Not as interesting as the
you were super stoked. You were super stoked about the earlier part of it, and I found a downgrade octave when you're like, well, that's what I'm doing now. And I'm like, oh, that sucks. I'm sorry. I really want to talk about the other stuff, man. That sounds really interesting.
Well, luckily we didn't have him here to talk about automotive stuff. Although if you decide to go over to Three Ravens and write in their Car Wars universe, maybe your experience will come into play.
Oh, boy.
Does that sound fun? A little Mad Max action? And a little Death Race 2000?
Three Ravens bought the rights to the Steve Jackson games RPG. And so they've been starting books in that universe. So, but that might be too close to work for you. So you might not like that, Jacob.
I'm like, cars, I want a break.
Yeah, that might be a little bit too close to home for me, because that's that's.
I definitely don't want to read or do a game based on border wars, So I'm like, I feel you.
Okay,
like, I get it.
All right, so. The next part of the introduction, dear listeners, how we first found him. So his wife was a guest on the show way back when. Her and Doc go way back. HP Holo. She does the
No way, bro. Really? Okay, I had no idea that was not in the show notes. That was not in the show notes. Now I feel.
I mean, they have the same last name. Come on, how many Holos do you know?
2.
I mean, if it was
one of them's on the show right now. I don't know, man. Like, yeah.
So she should have used initials VR Holo, because then it would have been cooler for her.
Oh,
she could have just pretended like her name was like a V name and like, what are you talking about? That's my name. I'd have totally.
That's a cool last name, though. I'm gonna tell you that. Like Holo, I'm like, is that a pen name? Turns out it's real.
It is half of a real name. It is half of our real last name.
Okay.
So the full one is Holowack. W.
They want
That's
people
cool too. What the?
And we just chop the difficult part off and
I get it.
And streamline it, and it just happens to sound a little sci-fi too.
There's an author.
So does Holowack.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's an author that writes sci-fi from like the fighter jet perspective. So he does like space fighters, which I argue should really be its own subgenre of mil sci-fi. And his initials are SF. And he writes sci-fi. I mean, how perfect is that? And he didn't even have to cheat for that one.
Like one of my most favorite mil sci-fi series was Space Above and Beyond, and that was all aviation. That was fighter jocks,
Is that the one where Emery was the drill sergeant?
He was. He did a couple episodes of that, and then you brought in the people that were cloned. They called them tanks or nipple necks.
Oh, I
You guys
remember
that?
watching that.
It was like in the
that
early
show.
2000s.
Yeah.
They were all Marines. They were called the Wild Cards. That was the name of their squadron. And they were like, they would fly fighter jets they're fighters, and they would also do like super secret squirrel Navy SEAL shit. So it was kind of weird, but it was also very entertaining. I was like, why are these pilots doing like direct action stuff? You know,
Because it worked for
fun.
Jag. Wait, no, this was before Jag, wasn't it?
This is before Jag, like by a year.
Because Harm, like he was an aviator turned lawyer, and then he was an aviator again because he was just so kick-ass. And they did the same thing. They did the same thing with Stargate.
Super hot. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. And then they had what was it? Stargate did Atlantis had the guy that was somehow he flew fighter jets and helicopters, which made him perfectly.
Cross aviation is not a big. It's not an unheard of thing.
Yeah, but there's a big difference from going like jet to jet and going jet to helicopter.
Oh yeah, from fixed wing to rotary wing. Yeah, it's a definitely big deal, but it's not unheard of.
Well, every helicopter pilot I've talked to says that it is unheard of. And I did some research for the book that I'm writing, so
maybe it is. I don't know. I could be wrong.
But anyway, so his wife was a guest, and she was so nice that he got an invitation because she was nice.
That's pretty awesome.
That sounds like Heather.
Welcome.
Yeah. So she was super friendly. So I said, "Hey, you've got a husband he writes to. Why not drag him on Kicking and Screaming?" And then it just took a little bit because she was season 1, and she was on when we were she was season 1. And I guess you've been busy doing the work thing, not dying. That's a achievement, by the way. Well done. You didn't die. You made 2 more years. So here we are. With that being said, we've got to start off, sir, with the religion question. Are you ready for this?
I am ready.
All right.
I am prepared for the religion questions.
Right. Star Wars, Star Trek, or Firefly?
Okay, so this is a really tough one for me.
I love it when we have guests in a dilemma about this question.
But I'm going to kind of walk you through reasons why I might give one or the other, and then I'll pick a one at the end.
Jacob,
if you're
hold
okay
my
with that
hand.
approach.
Hold my hand and walk me through your journey, sir. Walk me through it.
So, well, I'm going to start with Firefly.
Attaboy.
So the Firefly gets a special mention because not so much that I'm like really into it, because I'm not. I enjoyed Firefly, and I especially enjoyed Serenity.
Yes.
But I enjoyed the other 2 properties more. But my first pitch for a solo novel to Bain, which was purchased, was Firefly meets Ringworld, and Tony Weisskopf did pick that up, and I actually just turned in the manuscript.
Go on. I love it.
So Firefly gets a special mention because of that.
Yeah.
So now we're to Star Trek and Star Wars. So growing up, I watched a lot of both of them. There were like the VHS would get to the end of one of the movies and then would just get rewound, and I'd put in maybe a different one, or I'd just rewatch the one. I can't tell you how many times I watched like Wrath of Khan or the Star Wars movies. And in fact, if I just like reach over here,
oh my Lord!
So unfortunately this is Star Wars. Fantasy Flight Games, Star Wars Armada. Unfortunately, it's a bit of a dead game at this point.
You want to show it one more time? I figured out how to get you tuned in.
Oh yeah.
That game had a lot of potential.
Yes, it did.
It fell short.
Unfortunately, there's a bit of.
And you got the robot behind you, so you've got your nerd creds on display. I'm digging it behind your book.
Yep. I got Amuro's new Gundam from Char's Counter.
Pedigree confirmed.
Did you put that there just for us,
Stabby,
or is it normally there?
I'm sorry, what?
Did you put that there just for us, which total cool points still, or was it already there?
It was already a little bit off to the side. I maneuvered it.
That totally counts.
I've got another one over here. This is the most recent Gunpla that I put together. Let me just.
Nick, I'll let you brag later.
So.
Oh, nice.
No, that's cool as hell, bro.
Yeah, this is from what's Hathaway's Flash, I think is the movie. It's a really interesting Gundam design, and it was a fun build too. To me it seems a little bit busy, but it was really fun to put together.
There's a lot going on with that Gundam.
Yes, there is.
There's a lot going on with that Gundam. Like that's kind of where it kind of exceeds Robotech, which I'm a huge fan of, the Macross saga. I got a few Macross in the background, but their figures were so small, not in that same configuration as like the Gundam. Like, hey, I'm in your face. Gundam. Macross was like, I'm a cool figure, but I'm small. You know.
Okay, I gotta ask, Jacob. Have you thought about writing a Gundam type universe? Not like obviously hashtag shaved off the serial numbers, whatever, but your own take on it.
Well, I already have.
Oh, okay.
That's a double barrel answer into the face. I've already did it, dude.
Hold that thought. I just want to finish my answer.
Sure.
Yes, sir. You have
I'm like a religious question. PhD.
So between Star Trek and Star Wars, which I love both properties, and I've loved them both for a while, even though sometimes some of the more recent stuff that comes out kind of tests my love for the properties, shall we say?
Yeah, I feel you.
The Last Jedi made me very, very angry. In fact, that's the most angry that I've ever been coming out of a movie theater ever.
JR, don't ask me the question. Don't ask me. It'll be a 45-minute tirade, and we're here for Jacob.
But I have to say, between the two, I have to give the advantage to Star Wars. And that's because I got my start writing really bad Star Wars fan fiction. And so that's the seed that then eventually ends up here.
I wrote episode 3 before episode 3 even came out. I did like a 9/11 on the Jedi Temple. It was bad. It was also kind of cool.
So getting back to Gundam, I have written a trilogy of giant robot novels. It's basically like Gundam, Evangelion, and an older I think PS1 game called Xenogears all had a party in my brain, and then this trilogy just came out, and it's got giant robots fighting hand to hand in space.
That's a party I wish I got the invite for. I'm here for it. Did it ever get published?
Heather and I, we self-published it. It is the Seraphim Revival, and it is a complete trilogy. It's actually, of all the stuff of mine that is out, it is the earliest stuff in terms of chronology of when I wrote it.
And where can we find it? Is it available for purchase?
Yes. Yep. It's
awesome.
on Amazon. It's basically everywhere that Heather put it.
All right, cool.
But I know it's on Amazon.
I got. We all have an invite to the party now. We got to get to this.
So, for the record, Nick, HP Holo, his wife, is sort of like Stabby is to you, like the business director that tells you which direction to point the guns at. So,
oh no.
Yeah, he's got his own stab, except for I don't think she has any knives yet. I hope.
Okay. That's good.
No.
It means you'll live longer.
Yeah. So, all right. So we've got that series. We're gonna definitely take a look at that and maybe come back or do a panel built around the concept because it's just robots cool, right?
Because from what you described, I'm like,
it's giant robots fueled by the pilot's own soul and commanded by the society's honored dead.
I dig it. So one of the things when we were still the sci-fi shenanigans that used to get my co-host of the time, who had to get a real job, cursed be the adulthood economy. But Chris used to get all trippy. I know he used to get all trippy. They were trying to proof of concept for the concept of some of the robots they were building in Japan. So they scaled it down as you do. And the director who made it realized, hey, this is the perfect size for my toddler. So now you have him in an adult-sized one and his toddler in a kid-sized one doing katas. And of course, this guy at the time, he had toddlers near him. And he was just picturing a toddler throwing a temper tantrum in a mech suit. And so he just went off about like how uncool that was. And I'm just thinking like, that's one way to ensure the kid never gets bullied. Because you just show up
rocking around in a freaking Gundam.
Right? So it's a topic that's always amused me, and I think there's lots of room to explore for sci-fi and fantasy. As it wasn't David White, Larry Correia and Steve Diamond did the fantasy mech suits.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a topic we will revisit, and you will be on the list of people to come talk about with it now that we do more panels. And with that being said, you've answered the question, sir. Are you ready for the next one?
I am ready.
All right. Because we are polytheistic and we have no souls, we traded it for some booze and some good cigars. It was worth it. But with that being said, sir, Game of Thrones, The Wheel of Time, or Chronicles of Narnia?
Wheel of Time.
Excellent.
That's
choice.
the first. That's the first time we've ever had someone choose Wheel of Time on this show.
So
write that down.
Let's see here. I got introduced to Wheel of Time back in college 20 plus years ago. Oh my gosh.
Oh, wow.
So a friend of mine, he's like, hey, check out this series. And I started reading it, and I loved it. Now, granted, there's a part of the series that later on, I think I forget which book it was, but I was doing a lot of traveling at the time, and I was just kind of like going through the series. It's like my travel series, and reading through it. And it's like, you know what? Not a whole lot has happened for like 3 books. So I think there's a section there where things kind of slow down and kind of get mired, but the world building is just so good. So Game of Thrones, I read the first book, and I recognized why people liked it, but it just wasn't for me. I got to the end, and then the end of the first book happens, and like, where's my big battle? Because I was expecting like a big battle, because that was like the dessert at the end of all of Robert Jordan's books. It's like, okay, there may be some sections you got to slog through, but then you get that big, awesome battle at the end.
Payoff.
Yeah, exactly. Every book, you got that big battle at the end. It's amazing.
You didn't get that in the first book. You didn't get that at all. Very disappointing.
And I got to the end of Game of Thrones, and it's like, where's my battle? I didn't get my battle, and it just sort of like ended. And I'm like, I'm already reading, Wheel of Time. I'm like, I'm not going to, continue this one. So I set it aside, and I actually never watched the show either. Though I certainly heard a lot about it, particularly the later seasons.
Yeah, all the battles you wanted were way after.
But yeah, initially I approached Wheel of Time, as just a reader, and then looking at it as an author from like a craftsman standpoint. It's like, yeah, this is really well put together stuff here. Yeah, I really, and I remember I was so excited when I saw the first season being advertised. And, I was like reading, refreshing myself on the lore, getting prepared for it. I was talking it up to Heather. It's like, oh, this is great. I like bought her the first book so she could read it. And then we watched that season.
Oh, I see. Look at this.
And I'm like, you guys, you got all this intricate world building, and you just like throw most of it in the dumpster. Yeah. And I'm like, what? Why? You had the roadmap. It was already there. All you had to do was follow it.
That is poor producing. That is a poor producer and directorial effort right there.
If you trade the Wheel of Time and you insert any of the beloved franchises that were destroyed on television, the rant is the same. Star Wars, some of Star Trek.
Well, this is okay. So I have opinions about this.
Oh, we all have opinions. That's why we love it here.
But I'm approaching it from a different angle than I think most people approach it from, because I'm also on the creation side of things. So when you put a product in front of a consumer, be it a book, movie, game, whatever, a fictional setting, a fictional product, there's work that let's just go with reader in this case. The reader has to do. There are all sorts of like say for example my book. There's all sorts of tech that the reader has to absorb. There's all sorts of fake people, places, societies, all this stuff, and for the most part, the only value that work has is in the enjoyment of the product itself and related products. But the unspoken covenant between the author and the reader is that, yes, I am asking you to do this work, but I will make it worth your while. And then when you have later on, and say maybe not a book, but it's more common with streaming shows and movies. You as the viewer have done this work, and then they do something that invalidates the work that you've put, the effort that you've put into enjoying that series, and then the creators are surprised that, well, why are people upset? It's just fantasy. It's like, no, there was an unspoken agreement there, and you violated that agreement. That is why the fans are upset.
Yeah, absolutely. They created a world, they created the rules of said world, and then they violate their own rules, and then they clutch their pearls when the fans are like, no. Like that, no. Why did you do this? And they get upset about it. It's so weird. And you see it in Twitter. You see it all over the social medias and stuff when that kind of thing happens. And every fan is valid in their upset, and being upset about that, because they feel like a trust. We trusted an author and then we got betrayed.
Yeah. Yeah, because, like I said, it's like, hey, I'm asking you to do this. I'm going to make it worth your while. And then it turns out that you were lied to.
So you're not going to do that, right? I'm going to trust you right now as an author. If I read your books and you betray me, we're doing an episode.
I try very, very hard to make sure that the lore is consistent. Yes.
Well, and I think that's where you're probably going to be very successful, because you from a fan perspective, you also recognize that that's a problem. That the author makes a promise and a set of rules of how this universe is going to operate, and then you violate those rules. So, like, if you know that going in, you're going to write just really good stuff, because you want to keep your audience, and you want your audience to continue to trust you as you hold their hand and take them through this journey.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that the key word there is trust.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if you've built up that trust, and you like throw a wrinkle into the works. The readers are going to go along with the journey because like, okay, all right, this doesn't look right at first blush, but I trust this guy to see us through to an entertaining conclusion. And yes, it is absolutely very important to earn that trust from the readers.
I'm like that with every John Carpenter movie I've ever seen, ever, because he lures you in with that trust, and then he throws that ripple in there, and then it's rewarded because you're like, oh, I don't know if I trust this author anymore. I don't know if I trust this director anymore. And then he gives you that big payoff. And you're like, where's my boy? Thank you. You know, I love it. That's what I love about speculative fiction. It's why I'm on this show. It's why I love having guests. I love talking about this stuff.
But yeah, the Last Jedi was it was like I said earlier, it was the angriest that I have ever been coming out of a movie theater. And Heather
almost
thought it was
walked out.
hilarious because I was just ranting up a storm and she's just laughing. It's like, and afterwards she told me, I wish I had filmed that because I just went on this epic rant.
Did it start with Leia Mary Poppins out of the starship? Because that's where it started with me.
I'm trying to remember exactly where it started.
Killed Akbar and made Leia do stuff she's never done before.
I think initially I was like initially I was just super upset with how dumb all the military forces were in that movie. And what were there fewer TIE fighters sent against the ships than there were Star Destroyers following them or something like that? And like apparently, what is it, the Finalizer class? No, the Finalizer was one of the ship names. It was like the Resurgence class. Anyway, I think I've forgotten most of the First Order lore because it's not worth remembering. But those were like supposed to be carriers, and so you should see like what you had in Empire Strikes Back, where it's just like wave after wave of fighters are just like blotting out the stars
and the ion cannon and all that.
And it's like Kylo Ren and his homies, just show up in a few. And
Kylo Ren and the boys. That sounds like a rap group. Kylo Ren and the boys. It's like a progressive country rap group.
And he's just like there's no like combat air patrol protecting the
there's no fighter class.
And they're just like wrecking face. It's like, oh wait, no, you're too far ahead. You have to come back. We can't support you. Like he doesn't need any support. He's about to win.
Yeah.
So for the record, Kylo Ren was played by that driver character, and he was a former
Happy
Marine.
birthday, United States Marine Corps! To which
we are recording this
Adam
on
Driver
the
is also a Marine.
So you'll be hearing this in December, but think back fondly to the ones that didn't survive the drunken shenanigans.
I have no problem with Adam Driver. I think he's a great actor. I think he did a great.
I absolutely enjoy his performances.
No, I was referring to the Marines that might not survive their drunken shenanigans today. So when we look back at this in the 1st of December, when we listen to this episode, we're just going to have a moment of silence right now for those that didn't survive or that Article 15 themselves.
I hope you didn't OD on crayons and you received no
UCMG action.
Well, they call it NJP or NGP.
The Marines simple like.
I don't know because they're e-crayons.
I randomly got a ping on the face space from one of the Marines we worked with when I was in Iraq. He's the one who I actually made a joke about it when I shared it on Twitter, but they stole our tow bar because Gear Adrift is a gift. So that's
bastards.
Yeah, well, we stole their guidon, so I mean, I'd say we won that affair, but
Oh yeah,
It was
absolutely.
funny
Hands
on
down.
Marine Corps birthday, he reached out to me. I'm like, oh, you didn't drink yourself into oblivion. Congratulations, Devil Dog.
The day ain't over yet, sir. Veterans Day
Well, I
is
mean,
their recovery day.
this is in the evening record. He did message me at 3, so there was still, room for deterioration, improvement. Depends on who you ask. Just don't drink the grog. Don't drink the grog, sir. If they offer it, just no.
Oh man,
Don't do it.
always drink the grog. I don't
Oh.
care because it's the Marine Corps.
I just remembered the one thing that made me the most upset. The Haldo maneuver.
There it is.
That was
it
the thing
is.
that made
There it
me the absolute most upset because and I remember what I was telling Heather. It's like they have just invalidated the reason for having Star Destroyers, for having any of the cool stuff, because all you need are hyperdrives and anvils, and you can destroy anything.
Yep, I agree with you. And you're about to set me off on a 45-minute rant about that bullshit Hodor maneuver.
We should probably move on.
And I loved how in The Rise of Skywalker they tried to brush it out. They tried to brush it out like, oh, that's a 1 in a million. Because Ryan Johnson was like, oh, yeah, this is how I'm going to do the film. And I'm going to set this precipice where you can use hyperdrive missile systems. And I'm like, no, what are you doing? Because it just makes me think to Han in the very first Star Wars, like, hey, man, it's not like Dustin Crops, boy. You got to do these calculations. Otherwise, you're going to end up in the middle of a sun or a star or a, what did he say? An asteroid field. And that end your trip real quick. Now you have a hyperdrive weapon? Really? Come on. No. Ruin Johnson, if I ever meet you in the open street, and I swear to God, if I ever meet you, I'm going to slap the fuck out.
With that being said, please do not sue us. This was a joke in hypothetical land. And we're going to move on to the next religion question. You've got one more to make it through. And we're a half hour in because we've been getting nerdy with it, which, we did title the episode that. So it's kind of our fault.
But this question is probably the easiest of the three.
So, sir, because we are not knuckle-dragging troglodytes anymore anyway, coffee or tea, and how do you take it?
So, I don't drink either very often. When I have one, it's normally coffee.
Okay.
But normally it's whatever my wife has put in it. So I'll have a sip of whatever she's having. So she normally it's like.
Is she a barista? Does she make good? Does she make good coffee concoctions?
She buys really good coffee concoctions from really good coffee places. But there's actually this notorious episode from my childhood where I was introduced to chocolate covered coffee beans, and I
ate them, right?
Oh yes, and yes. I ate too many, and
do it. They're delicious, though, right?
They are.
They are. I've also made that same mistake, sir.
And after that, my parents did not let me have chocolate covered coffee beans for a while.
Because you were amped up, weren't you? You were like,
oh yeah. It was Jacob cranked up to 11, and the parents did not appreciate that.
Yeah, and we got a Spinal Tap reference out of there. It's dialed to 11. Dialed to 11. Yeah, I remember the first time I ate those, and I was like, oh man, they taste really good, but it's got that coffee flavor. So it was like, and then next thing you know, I was a bottle rocket. I had so much energy, and I was like 10. So I had no, I went outside and I'm running, and I'm riding my bike. I'm like being very annoying in the neighborhood. I got banned from 3 parks that day. So good, though. Do they still make that stuff, man? Because I'm going to get an order.
I don't think so, but I could be wrong.
Oh, I'm looking.
Well, anyway, we are at the half-hour mark, and we didn't make it past the religion questions, but I had a lot of fun going all the sideways rabbit trails. But before we go to the commercial, I have to ask you, because you don't see many people rock the bow ties anymore. So what's the story there?
All right. So
he's a Time Lord.
Pardon?
You're a Time Lord. Only Time Lords rock. I'm sure there's a fez somewhere underneath you.
So you're closer than you think. So one Heather and I we went to Dragon Con a number of years ago, and we decided to cosplay as doctors from Doctor Who. And so she did David Tennant, and I did Matt Smith. And so that was the first time that I wore a bow tie. And I found out that I really liked it. And I've always enjoyed, not so much like dressing up like really fancy, but maybe a little more formal than most of the people around me. But on the other side of that, I work in an industrial environment. So I had kind of developed this phobia of wearing long ties. It's sort of like the one scene from Who Framed Roger Rabbit where the guy got his tie.
Oh, no, what you're talking about. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but bow ties solve that issue perfectly.
Did you wear a vest?
I will sometimes wear a vest, but not often. I will sometimes wear suspenders, but not often. But so after that one Dragon Con, and I forget how many years ago it was, 5-ish, 7-ish, somewhere around there. Christmas rolls around, and so Heather's like, "Hey, family wants to know what you want for Christmas." I said, "Bow ties." He's like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Absolutely." And that's how my collection of bow ties got started.
That's awesome.
Do you free tie them, or do they come with the clip and you just sort of?
I have about 50-50 split. This one is free tied. But sometimes I'm just feeling a little bit lazy and we want to go out to dinner, and I'll just do the clip. So it's more of a mood thing. If I'm feeling, fancy, or if I'm feeling lazy.
From the outside, they both look fancy, so nobody would know.
Yeah. Getting a collection, he needs a fez.
So my grandpa Handley was a little bit of a he wasn't always the church deacon, and so he always told me to get clip-on bow ties, because if you ever got in a fight and someone tried to grab your tie, because this is back when everyone wore shirt and tie all the time, he's like, they can't choke you with it. And then while they're in a little bit of shock that the tie came off, because that was back when clip-ons weren't as common, he said you get a few jabs left and right in before they can recover, and sometimes that's all you need. That was his advice to me when I was 13.
So my grandpa wore bow ties to church, but he never tied them. They just hung over there like he was a mob boss. But he was a Navy vet, so he was like big, broad shoulders, giant delts, and he had like forearms like Popeye, and he had American Eagles on each one, boxing, because he was a boxer on ship. He was that guy. So he won a couple of fleet championships or whatever. So he was very proud of that. So when he showed up to church, he looked like an Irish mob boss. He had the bow tie undone. He wore the vest buttoned up with a pocket watch, mind you, which is what I thought was baller as shit. And he would wear a duckbill cap. It's like, Jesus Christ, did Boston spit you out? And then he had his sleeves rolled up, and he would have these two American Eagles facing off. Coolest shit ever. Like, I'm not even that cool to pull that off. And I draw comic books. I mean, how cool is that?
But
he had a bow tie.
Nick, I have to ask, because I know the audience is thinking it. Are we sure he wasn't a mob boss? Did he ever tell you he was in sanitation?
I know that the family went back to Boston, and that there was some ties to the Sullivans. So I'll just leave it at that.
Did they donate some money to the Troubles?
They donated stuff to the church.
Okay.
Grandpa, that's a $25,000 check. Who you sending that to? I'm sending to the fucking church.
Okay.
So maybe now that I think about it, he might have been a mob boss.
There's a pretty cool song. If you're listening to this in December when it airs, there's a pretty cool Dropkick Murphy song about family, and it's set in Boston because it's Dropkick Murphys.
Well,
Yeah. It's pretty awesome. It's also not very family friendly, so I will not quote any of the lyrics tonight.
Dropkick Murphys. I mean, come on.
Jacob has a reputation as a decent human being to uphold. I mean, they pretty much know that's over for us. The ship has sailed, Nick, but Jacob still has the chance at decency.
Yeah, well, yeah.
All right, we're gonna pause while I shamelessly shill for the man. This time, another Bane author, Larry Correia, and his Gunrunner book with John Brown, who did not march on Harper's Ferry. We have that in good authority. He is not that John Brown.
Once, long ago, Jackson Rook was a war hero. Raised from boyhood to pilot a mech, he fought gallantly for the rebellion against the collectivists. Now he's a criminal, a smuggler with a new mission: steal a top-of-the-line mech and deliver it to a world so hostile, even the air will kill you. In the smuggling business, it's best to take the money and ask no questions. But when the client runs roughshod over the planet's citizens, Rook must look deep inside and see if the heart of a warrior still beats within. Gunrunner, by best-selling authors Larry Correia and John Brown. From Bane Books at banebooks.com.
We figured
I like that cover so much.
I do too. We figured it was appropriate since you write for Bane also. Do you write for other trad pub or just Bane?
Just Bane.
Okay. I mean, that's like not just Bane because it's kind of a big deal, but
yeah, Bane's a big deal. I can't get into Bane. They laugh at me.
I mean, if I showed up to buy books, they'd probably let me in and take my money, but then they kick us out the back door, so no one knows we were there.
They would definitely take my money and let me buy a book. And I'm
but then they kick us out the back door, so they didn't know.
Don't tell anybody that you bought my stuff.
So we're going to show the cover, and you're going to tell us the story of the Gordian universe, and then about your debut novel, traditionally published novel, in this world, which is the 5th book in this series of standalones. So first, we're going to show that cover. And what can you tell us about the universe and how you got involved?
So the Gordian Division series started with the Gordian Protocol, and it's a tale of two historians, one from the 30th century and one from our modern day time, that have to team up and change the past in order to save the future. And unfortunately, there are a bunch of really mean people with some heavily militarized time machines that would very much like them to not succeed. And a lot of action and drama ensues. Then we escalate things in the next book, the Valkyrie Protocol. I actually remember a conversation that David Weber and I had, and he was concerned that we were escalating things too quickly. And so he called up Tony Weisskopf, and we explained what we were doing, and Tony's response was, "Go big." So while the Gordian Protocol has like a dogfight between, I don't know, like 8 different time machines in one of the scenes, the Valkyrie Protocol has a fleet action involving 300 time machines and a time-traveling battle station that's firing time-traveling nuclear-tipped missiles.
Okay.
So a slight escalation.
Yeah, a little bit. You really upped the ante there.
But one of the things that I didn't really know at the time, when we were plotting out the second book, is that David had actually wanted the series to end up as have a police procedural aspect to it.
Okay.
And he's also concerned that we would, given where we were going, we would run out of apocalypses to throw at our protagonists.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, all right. So we worked on a what became the Janus file, which is much more. It's within the same larger setting, but it's really zoomed in. It is at its heart a murder mystery. And I discovered that I really, really enjoy writing police procedurals. And so, we wrote the Velto file, which was another police procedural, and then Tony and I were talking about solo projects, and I said, well, okay, do you want a proposal from me set in the Gordian Division series, or would you like something original? And she said, let's embrace the power of and. Like, okay. So I put together 2 proposals for her. One ended up as the Dyson file, and one I actually just was the Freelancers of Neptune, which I just turned in, and she ended up buying both of them. I thought she was going to pick one or the other, but she ended up buying both of the solo proposals, and so yeah, that's how the 5th book in the series ended up being a solo contribution. Now, one of the things that I didn't tell David until we had turned in book 1. So when David approached me with the idea of writing this series, we were out to dinner. Me, Heather, David, his wife Sharon. We were out to dinner, and I had actually I had just had a manuscript rejected by Bain, and so I had asked him, David, would you mind going through this manuscript and telling me where you think I need to improve as an author? He's like, oh yeah, I can do that. And over the course of dinner, he had this he developed this mischievous smile, and then he said, you know what? I think we should write a book together.
Okay.
And he already had the general framework for the Gordian Protocol. So it wasn't called that at the time. It was just a proposal that he had actually sent in to Jim Bain back when he proposed Honor Harrington, a whole number of other things. There were like 10 proposals that he had sent Bain at that time. And the Gordian Protocol was one of them. What David didn't know was that I had once sworn to myself that I would never, ever, under any circumstances, write time travel, because I didn't want to have to deal with time travel drama. So of course, my response to David was, "Why, yes, David, I think this is a wonderful idea."
Well, it's David Weber. I mean,
exactly, it's David Weber.
Hey, Dave, what's going on? What can I do for you today, sir?
Yes.
Don't worry, I have questions for David too.
So the Dyson file is we have 2 detectives. They are not so much from opposite sides of the tracks as they are from 2 separate timelines.
Okay, I can see how that gets interesting.
2 different versions of Earth, and one from Cisca, which is it's a very mature post-scarcity society. They have mature AI technology, replicating machines, all sorts of stuff, virtualized mentality, the works. The admin is going through the transition into post-scarcity, and their society is having to deal with that, and they're having some bumps along the road. They are also a much more militaristic and xenophobic culture by nature, in that they have existential threats that they are actively combating against.
Right.
So you have Isaac Cho, who is the Cisco detective. He's very much a his superpower is that he is methodical, hardworking, and that he doesn't give up.
That's a good superpower to have, though.
He's not a super genius, but he is very thorough. And then you have from the other side, who's his deputy via the officer exchange program, is Special Agent Susan Cantrell, and her previous experience with law enforcement is blowing up terrorists.
I can relate.
And she has a full synthetic body, so whenever bullets start flying, she's the one who jumps in the way.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And these two characters are actually the most fun characters I've ever written, and I just writing scenes with them just almost immediately puts a smile on my face. I really enjoy writing the dynamic between the two, because you have initially when they're paired in the Janus file, it very much looks like that this isn't going to work out because it's kind of an oil and water thing.
Right.
But the secret is that they're actually kind of perfect for each other.
Okay.
Not only professionally but romantically, but they're both so dense that they don't realize it.
Right.
And that's part of the fun that I have with writing those characters. Anyway, this particular one starts with what appears to be a suicide of a high-profile engineer who's in charge of the project to demolish the planet Mercury and convert it into a solar collecting megastructure.
Okay.
Committed suicide, and
the science matches. It works.
And Isaac and Susan have been sent in to evaluate the situation.
Okay, my question is, are the protagonists, are they like a law enforcement time travel type thing? Like, is there like a set of laws for the time travel, and that, like, are they in charge of like enforcing that? Is there an enforcement arm? How available is the time travel technology to other people?
These are all very good questions. So they operate adjacent to the main time traveling arm. So the Gordian Division is the time and transdimensional law enforcement arm of CISPOL. This is the Consolidated System Police, which is Cisca's federal police entity. Isaac is in Themis Division, which is they're essentially the detectives, and so they have sometimes interactions with the Gordian Division. In the Dyson file, there is actually no time travel in the Dyson file, or transdimensional travel. Whereas in Janus and Veltal, there's a little sprinkling of time and transdimensional travel. So in terms of it looks like we lost him there.
Yeah, I'm listening though, so keep going.
Okay. In terms of the legal landscape, the titles of the books, the Gordian Protocol, the Valkyrie Protocol, those are actually the laws that have been put in place to prevent the existential disasters that nearly destroyed all of reality in the first two books.
Okay.
And time travel and transdimensional travel are heavily restricted because it's very, very dangerous. But they do play a role in the Janus file and the Velto file. But the Dyson file is very much just a straight sci-fi police procedural in the setting, and the time travel does not play a factor this time.
So in the series writ large, where time travel does play some of a factor, do you play into the time travel sort of paradoxes that everyone gets wrong? Did you just take the idea that they're in parallel universes so they don't have to match up and it works? Do you have a common point of divergence?
So we have we have a number of mechanics in place to avoid plot holes that we just, David and I designed into the system from the get-go. So, and I'll answer your question, but there's one thing that I wanted to mention first in talking about the rule set. So one of the problems that I generally have with time travel in fiction, and it's not always, it's not with all of the rules. Some of them handle this well, but the issue that I have is with the sequence of events. So you have, like, someone goes back in time and makes a manipulation that then propagates forward, and you know, like the whatever present the character's in has changed, and then you have like more, you know, time travel, you know, then you have to go back and you have to you know, change it again and whatnot. It's like, okay, what mechanism applies a sequence to the time travel manipulations? And generally it's the order that you're viewing, you know, the order that the scenes are being presented, or the order that you're reading them in a book. Well, we actually have a mechanism for that. And so there is a point in time, it's called the true present, and there is no future past it. It is moving forward 1 second per second. And so if you go back in time for, say, a month, you know, a month your time, and you come back to the true present, it is 1 month later. So what that gives us is a master clock that everything else can be sequenced off of. In terms of manipulations to the timeline, in our setting, you cannot change your own past. You can cause the timeline to branch, which generally spawns a new universe. You can, but that has to, there's a certain threshold that event has to reach in order for the timeline to branch. Otherwise, once you leave essentially the temporal inertia, things just kind of go back to the way they were.
Right.
So we do, it's essentially a branching timeline mechanic with a master clock and a point in time where it's like, hey, there is no future past this. So you're not going to,
in time.
Yeah, their future selves are not going to show up in one book because that future hasn't happened yet.
Right. No, that's pretty interesting. That's pretty cool. How you set that up.
Okay.
It definitely takes out the Doctor Who elements of being able to go forward and backwards in time at certain points and like muck things up. So, no, I like that element of time travel. It's like you can only go so far.
Yeah, a lot of the series focuses on like the interactions between Cisca and the admin, and so we're dealing with, you know, how, and also they're kind of going out into the wider multiverse and kind of locating the coordinates for other universes that have spawned. And like there's this book was just turned in, the Thermopylae Protocol, which will be book 6. That part of that book takes place on in a timeline where World War I went a bit long and went nuclear.
Oh, wow.
So So that timeline had it a bit rough.
That's different. You know?
Now, I know there has been a timeline in a time travel or alternate history where the Civil War was lost by the Union, so there was an American front to World War I, but I've never seen it go long in nuclear.
That's crazy, man. That's
actually
really interesting.
Did you start it with the Archduke Ferdinand?
Yep.
You know, I'm just going to be upfront with you guys. I leave the alternate history stuff to David. I'm the techie of the two of us, though David is certainly no slouch.
Is a classically trained historian, so Nick has said we're not allowed on the same podcast because he needs it to be done under 12 hours. Like he's got a hard limit, so he's just not letting me know.
We got 11 hours left. Let's go.
All right. So, what was it like doing this solo? Did you end up getting any insight from David, or was it just literally, here's the reins, go do your thing, I'm going to go take a breather?
So, as the series has gone on, so with the first book, it's very much, this is, David's concept. We kind of split the world building design work. I designed the two 30th century societies. He did all the alternate history stuff. He designed some characters. I designed some characters. He did the initial plot outline. It was
a true collaboration.
Oh yeah. And as the series has gone on, he's handed me more and more of the reins, so that when I said, "Hey David, would you mind if I write a Gordian Division book solo?" He was completely on board with it. I wrote up basically my sales pitch for Tony Weisskopf. He reviewed it first. I sent it to her, got it approved. And then the next time that he saw it was, I gave him the finished manuscript. He reviewed that, gave me the thumbs up, and then I submitted it to Bain. There are certainly, as I said, Isaac and Susan are two of my favorite characters ever to write, and I may be proposing another solo at some point in the future. Can't say what the future holds, but it's
spoilers, darling.
So obviously that's how the universe came to be, but how did you end up writing with David Weber to start with? Because that's something a lot of people would like to do and not many get to do.
So this actually, this story starts in a rather dark place and starts with Heather being diagnosed with melanoma. Oof. And so she had and it was stage 1. So she had the cancer removed. As part of that, she had a lymph node biopsy, and there were 2 lymph nodes that were removed, and they had to cut through muscle to get to that. So her recovery from that was rough,
substantial.
Yes. Now, to tell the fast forward through that aspect of the story, there has not been a recurrence since that cancer was removed. So
that's good. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so she was recovering from that surgery. And Heather likes to be up and about. And she was having a severe case of cabin fever. And
thank God she didn't stab you.
And she said, "Hey, Jacob, there's a small convention nearby. Let's go to it." I'm like, "Heather, we're still at the point where I am helping you, up and down from the couch. I don't think walking around at a convention is really the smartest thing." It's like,
you lost that one, didn't you?
Well, and then she said, "David Weber's going to be there. You can get your copy of In Death Ground signed." And I went to grabbed my old dog-eared copy of In Death Ground, and I'm like, okay, you win.
Wheelchair it is.
So we went there, and I've got my arm out, and she's hobbling around, and the TRMN, the Honorverse fan club was there, and so we were online, got the book signed. David was handing out free copies of On Basilisk Station, so I got another copy of On Basilisk Station. Put down In Death Ground, and David said, "Whoa," which I believe was our shortest conversation ever. And so I, got both books signed.
Yeah.
Stepped aside, and I didn't really think anything of it. And so then we're talking to some of the fan club, and they're like, "Oh, you guys write also? Well, if you join the fan club, we do reading challenges, and if you're a member of the fan club and someone reads your book, then the page count is double." And it's like, oh, well, this might be a cool way for us to get our struggling indie books a little bit more traction.
Right.
It's like, oh, cool, yeah. And then they said, oh, you need to talk to Sharon, David's wife. And we're like, no, we do not need to bother David Weber's wife. So they sort of dragged us over, sat us down. Sharon came over and started talking about, just writing and books and all sorts of stuff. And an hour went by, and Sharon said, we should do lunch sometime. Like, okay.
There it is.
That sounds fine to me. And so, we met up, four of us met up a couple weeks later, and lunch lasted 4 hours. And and then we met again and again and again. And the four of us became really good friends.
Yeah.
It certainly, I'd be lying if I said it never crossed my mind that, hey, I'm friends with this, David Weber, New York Times best-selling author, David Weber. But I never brought up the topic of writing with him to him.
Yeah.
I guess in my head, I was just telling myself, if that were ever to be in the cards, it should come from him.
Right.
And eventually it did. He had read some of my indie stuff, so I wasn't like, he didn't know what my writing was like.
He was aware of you.
Yes, he was.
Yeah. That's a good thing.
He knew my writing, and he knew me as a person, as a friend. And so he invited me to write a book together with him. And we have so far written 5 books together, 4 of which have been published.
That's awesome.
And I'm very, very lucky, very privileged to be able to say that David Weber is a very good friend of mine.
That's great. That's awesome. I like to hear those types of stories. And that should go out to you, dear fans, if you're a creative type, whether you're doing speculative fiction, comic books, or whatever. If someone that you admire invites you to dinner 4 times, you're probably in a lock to do something good,
Unless they just want you to keep paying for the steaks. You got to read the room.
Well, yeah, that too. I was on the assumption that David was paying for the steaks, or at least going half.
We alternate.
Yeah, there you go. See, there you go. I win.
Which of us pays for dinner?
No. So what it is everyone sees the bow tie and they assume he's like landed gentry, and all he needs now is a top hat and a monocle, and he's already there.
No, he needs suspenders and a dress coat.
Hey, have you ever gone for Mr.
I'm going to dress him like Matt Smith. I don't care what you say. I'm going to put a fez on him.
Mr. Moneybags with like the tuxedo with the bow tie and the hat and the monocle.
From Monopoly?
Totally
no. Yeah. That guy's pretentious.
I mean, you
I'll
could put it on.
sometimes put on suspenders or a vest, but normally it's just a button down shirt and a bow tie.
No, I'm getting you a fez. That's non-negotiable. That has to happen.
Okay. So now we just got to like match the bow tie to the suspenders to the wrap around the fez. Like it's got to happen.
Oh yeah, this is happening. I want pictures. Put it on
You
my
know what they
website.
call a place that makes hats, Nick?
Hattery?
No, a haberdashery. I know this word from high school spelling bee. Okay, actually, it was middle school spelling bee. I didn't do that crap in high school. I wrestled so I could get the girls.
Haberdashery?
Haberdashery.
All right. I know I have to go do a mustachery for.
Wait, isn't
my
that
beard.
for only men's hats? I thought there was a different word for women's hats.
Well, you, sir, are a man, so I was going on the assumption we were talking about you.
Fair enough.
We all go to a haberdashery because we're manly men. In tights.
Because I remember I had to look up the word for. Oh wait, that it actually is the Dyson file where that word ends up.
The haberdashery is in the Dyson.
No,
file?
no, it's the other word. I don't remember it. Begins with an M, but someone
Monocle?
Pardon?
Monocle, because I like that word.
It's
no.
So Isaac has a virtual companion, an AI companion, and he gets her a gift card for some hats. She really likes hats.
I like hats.
They're virtual hats, but someone has to design them.
Yeah. Doesn't matter to me. Virtual, real ones, as long as I look cool.
I visited the haberdashery in Colonial Williamsburg once. I don't know if it's still open, but I tried to get the tri-corner hat, but then I saw the price tag and I'm like, yeah, I got to sell a couple thousand more books for that to happen. They charge you extra for the arsenic and lace that they use when they make it. That was a joke, Nick. You're supposed to.
You got to pay extra for that?
Yeah.
Or does it come with?
No, you got to pay extra. Anyway.
Yeah, I pay extra for it.
I think it's
all right,
millinery. Anyway.
Millinery. That sounds like it might be real, but I could just be pulling that out of my backside. So you've created a very extensive world with lots of parallel sort of timelines. Is there any opportunity for people to permanently cross over and stay on the one they like more?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean,
or
that's
the one that they're not wanted on, like if you were a cop or a criminal running from the cops kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, that's Susan, the admin special agent, is essentially working in Cisca on through the officer exchange program. So yeah, there's cross-pollination between the two, and there is transdimensional crime that as the two societies collaborate more is also cropping up more. And there are also opportunities for nefarious deeds to be done outside of those two, basically superpowers in the setting. A lot of the other timelines have had something go horribly wrong that has set them back either societally or technologically or generally both. And so most of the, in fact, yeah, for the most part, Cisca and the admin are the only two societies that have access to time travel and transdimensional travel.
That we know of. Okay. So
that we know of.
Because you wrote this, would you like to live in this world that you created?
Yes. Cisca is, it actually, you might say it shares some DNA with the optimistic view of the future that Star Trek has. And it certainly, it's not the same. It does its own thing, but I think there's that, sense that, hey, we can, work through our present day problems and realize a better tomorrow. And that is the Cisca side of the setting. And yes, it would be a very cool place to live. Also, and this is pretty much from my it's a big part of my contribution to the setting because I'm an avid gamer. The Cisca, they're big into games. In fact, the Veltal file takes place at the first cross-universe gaming tournament. And the main plot centers around death threats being leveled against one of the star visiting players.
Okay. So are you planning on making a corresponding game to go with this?
No, there are no plans to do that. I mean, so there are a few games that I've kind of built at least enough of a framework to write about in the setting. And a lot of times they're just based off of stuff that Heather and I have been playing. So there's essentially like a D&D / Pathfinder equivalent, though it's like full interactive VR.
So like closer to Battle Chess than Theater of the Mind.
Battle Chess?
You never played that as a kid?
I
Is
think
that where you make a move and slap the shit out of the opponent?
No. Battle Chess is where the characters on the board move, and if you take them, your character fights the other character and kills it. So like,
oh, that's awesome.
Your rook will Hulk stabs them. Like, it's a computer game. I had it on my Commodore 64.
I do not have.
No, the game in the setting is called Solar Descent, and it's kind of a science fantasy Dungeons and take on Dungeons and Dragons. So there's a lot of just role playing and it's just it's one of the things that the characters do to relax. There's also another one called Mech Master. That is Heather and I, we were playing a lot of Digimon the card game.
Okay.
And so I sort of just borrowed some of the rules from that, and it's like, yeah, I can make this work in a fictional setting. So instead of Digimon evolving as for the card game, it's mechs combining. and that's sort of how the card game works.
Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Oh no, we don't do that. What are you doing?
I'm trying to go old school. I mean, I already proved old as dirt.
You went too. You got to take the Wayback Machine up towards us a little bit more.
I mean, we're a time travel series, so I had to go full.
Yeah,
and then there's
time that you don't visit.
Do you have like Time Lord equivalents in your book, like extra terrestrial type alien deities or whatever equivalent you want to throw in there?
No.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
No, there isn't anything like that in the setting. There aren't any aliens, at least not yet, in the setting. It is very human centric.
I'm getting some very Jean-Claude Van Damme. I probably butchered his pronunciation, but you know who I mean.
Muscles from Brussels?
Yes. His movie Time Cop, if you remember.
I do remember that movie vaguely.
So, because you're alternate, like parallel universes, you don't really have to worry about like the event that happens if you touch your past or future self, where you just sort of cease to be.
Yeah, you don't. Okay, so there actually there isn't that, but the way that we have the rules set up is so you can go into the past, and there's a certain level of manipulation that you can do without causing a branch, and then you can leave, and whatever ripples you've caused kind of smooth themselves out. The temporal inertia re-exerts itself, and things go back to the way they were. But an effect of this is that you can remove people and artifacts from the past and bring them to the true present. And you can do that over and over and over and over and over again. So then you end up with a method called, that we call temporal replication. Now, that is a very powerful tool to put in a character's toolbox. So we had to part of what David and I set out to do with book 2, the Valkyrie Protocol, is to explain why our characters will not, under almost any circumstance, do that. And I think we explained it adequately because there are a lot of casualties in that book. And the lesson is learned. Don't muck with that. Bad things will happen.
Okay. Did you kill anybody you disliked in real life in that scene? Like that old 3rd grade math teacher who just gave you too much homework or something?
No, but I will say that the main villain in the second book, and I won't reveal who that person is, but that character. Okay, normally when I create villains, I'm kind of sympathetic toward them. I have a soft spot for really well-designed villains. I mean, also, like, I collected Imperial. I like collecting the bad guys. But most of my my Warhammer 40K armies are bad guy armies.
Have you talked to your therapist about this?
Actually, no, I have not talked to my therapist about this.
I'm just saying the rebels were the real terrorists. All right. The Empire just wanted to keep order. I mean, I said what I said.
And I've what was it? Oh yes. Okay.
The bad guy.
But the villain in book 2, I absolutely despised that character. And I have never been happier to kill off a character than in that scene. And it's a great death scene. It is a fantastic death scene.
So who wrote that villain? Was that David's influence for the villain, or was that one you brought in?
So that character was introduced in book 1, and I introduced that character. And it was David's. David was the one who came up with the idea to use that character as the villain for book 2. And what a scumbag. Oh my gosh. I was so happy to kill off that character. I just felt bad every time I had to write that character into a scene. I'm like, ugh, I hate this. I hate him. And then I got to kill him off.
All right. Well,
and then David actually took the death scene and amped up even just a little bit more. He just added that David Weber touch.
So a little bit of fire and brimstone.
Oh,
Creature Days.
Yeah. Mm.
Okay. I dig it, but I'll keep going for hours if you let me, because I get nerdy about this stuff. But Nick has a job he has to go to tomorrow. I don't know what that's about.
Yeah, it's so dumb. I hate going, but they keep paying me, so I keep showing up.
So, All right, Nick. Next question was yours.
Hey, man. 2-part. Get ready.
Okay.
What are you working on now, and where can we find you?
All right. What am I working on now? So this see, I'm not actually sure how much I'm allowed to talk about this.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay, I'll go over what David has already talked about. So David has invited me to write, to collaborate with him on a trilogy in the Honorverse.
Nice.
Yes.
Side characters or new? Are they like main characters from the original series? Is it going to be new side characters just in the universe?
It is prequel. Are either of you guys familiar with the character Edward Saganami?
I am.
I know that
Go
name.
on.
So the life and times and heroic death of Edward Saganami. That is what that is the main focus of the trilogy.
All right.
So,
well, because of that, go ahead.
So I've been working very extensively with Tom Pope and David. We have a pretty solid outline for book one, and we're basically the next step is to talk to Tony, say, hey, we're ready to go. Yeah, I'm super excited about this.
Okay, so because you mentioned you're writing in that universe, do you have a favorite faction in the Honor First Saga?
Oh, I mean, it's hard to beat the RMN, you know. I just.
Sure. I mean, you had a penchant for the bad guy, so I was just checking.
I know, but I just love the Royal Manticore Navy so much.
I mean, if I had known you had a soft spot for the baddies, we could have had you on the Space Pirate episode we recorded.
Totally.
I could see it. Even get you an eye patch, you'd totally rock that crap.
Oh yeah, eye patches are key.
But yeah, that's what I'm currently working on. I just turned in Freelancers of Neptune, which is Firefly meets Ringworld. Dave and I are very close to turning in the Thermopylae Protocol, which is book 6, and is another big existential threat to our setting. It actually, the Thermopylae Protocol is really cool in that we're combining both the cast from the protocol books with the cast from the file books. Normally, there's just a little bit of cross-pollination, whereas this one, both of them are front and center and are heavily involved in resolving the big existential threat of the book.
Okay.
Nice. So we'll definitely have to have you. We'll have to have you back for the we haven't announced it yet, but it'll air kind of contemporary to this one. The Origins of a Villain is an episode we were planning for a discussion.
I would be very happy if I got an invite to that.
Consider yourself invited, sir. And it might even air before this one. I haven't checked the schedule. But with that being said, dear listener, this is the part of the interview where I remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right book, and it keeps them motivated to keep writing. When you say nice things, it strokes their ego, and they like that. So
I love that.
Authors are very sheltered, and you know they need that little bit of ego boost. So say nice things; they like it. With that being said, you can find us on our Linktree, linktr.ee, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast. Again, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast, where we link to all the things: the bit shoots, the rumbles, the Twitters, the email where we have serious business inquiries only, the Facebook group and the Facebook page. And finally, we have Madam Stabby Stab on our Instagram, Twitter, and email address where you can send all of the hate mail that you don't want to direct at Nick directly. You can send to Madam Stabby. We make no apologies for the crying she makes you do afterwards. That's on you, people. You can also support or find us on our website at anchor.fm/blasters-and-blades. Again, anchor.fm/blasters-and-blades, where you can support the show for as little as 99 cents a month. You can help keep the lights on, or you can support the show more directly over at buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section that it is for the podcast. And I promise I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink until the coffee pours out of their eyeballs. And this is where I also remind you that if you click the link for Coffee Brand Coffee, you can support the show by buying some fine American brewed and American ground Java for yourself. We get a little bit of a kickback when you use the link. And if you use our code, you get a discount. So it's a win-win. It's podcast grunts on all of the Coffee Brand Coffee websites. They have fine teas, coffees, hot chocolates, or cacao, as they like to say, because, you know, people, you know what, Nick? I imagine when they say cacao instead of hot chocolate, they put their pinky in the air.
Oh, yeah. They're like, they cock their head up so they can look down their nose at you. I'm like, all right,
absolutely.
Whatever.
It's European sipping chocolate, sir.
No.
Anyway, I drink coffee because I'm a
World
man.
War champions. Forget about it.
Exactly. And with that being said, thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. And we are out. Wait for it.